I'll be the moderator for today. And today we're going to have a panel called Generation DIY. Very exciting name. So the context of today's panel is we are part of the Eurosonic Noorderslag Festival. This is a non-for-profit festival that focuses on European artists only. Normally a very big festival that gets a lot of people to the north of the Netherlands. But this year also with the circumstances surrounding Corona, they've searched for different ways of doing the festival. And this is one of the outings. So Eurosonic Noorderslag reached out to GoTo. That's a boutique style agency, creative agency based here in Amsterdam. That's rooted in contemporary culture and that functioned as a creative hub, basically between brands and some of the younger demographics they would try to contact with, right? So for this year, the theme for the conference obviously has a lot to do with the global crisis that the music industry is currently in. It seems sometimes like the culture industry has been hit the hardest. You have so many of you artists, venues, clubs, promoters, fighting to keep it moving. And a lot of people are thus changing their focus to finding new ways, this new reality. So within this team, the Road to Recovery, we'll start by looking forward and talk about developments in your field that can help us perhaps revive this music industry, but also reflect on what we've been doing and how we can possibly improve. But before we get to all of that, I would love to introduce the panelists for today. And we have my guy, Young Nel, an artist I'm extremely excited about, a person I regard almost as a young brother. And I'll have you introduce yourself a little bit in more detail, Nel. We also have Mr. Jasper Kremers from Red Bull Studios in our middle. And we have my guy, Julio Galvez from Selection. So let me start with you, Nel. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and why you are part of this panel, you think?
Yeah. So my name is Glenn, and I make music under the name Young Nel. I'm a Ghanaian Dutch artist who loves to create things and push the potential, which I believe we as humans have. I therefore work with a team which I set up with like-minded people, and it's a movement called ESNS. I'm an independent artist, and I think that that's something which was very interesting for the programmers of Eurosonic to have my point of view about this journey which I've been on. And I think that I'll give you guys some more insight about my thought process and the creative process in this great mission I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks.
Yes.
And you, Mr. Jasper, can you briefly introduce yourself and perhaps share some thoughts why you are part of this panel?
Well, thank you for the introduction. I'm Jasper Kremers. I'm a producer, also an artist manager. But I think my role for which I was invited here to talk about is my role that I played at the Red Bull Studios. Doesn't exist anymore since a couple of days. We closed the shop here. But still I have a lot of experience with the world between the artists and the brands. And I think that plays a even bigger role now. The role that brands can play in developing talents. So I think that's that's the reason why I'm sitting here talking to you guys.
Check. Hey, and last but not least, Mr. Julio.
What's good?
Tell us a little bit about your background, and perhaps you can also formulate some thoughts why you're part of this panel today.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thank you for the introduction, and pleasure to be here. My name is Julio Galvez, aka the Hooligan. I used to work with Selection, and I was originally the worldwide global bookings director of worldwide bookings and partnerships. So I managed all of our events and tours for 5-6 years under the label, did artist management. And then I branched out and created my own company, Room Service International, which is the 4Action community action organization. And we bring about change within the communities that we travel to. So through tours and events and partnerships with organizations, we give back to underserved communities all over the world. So it's bridging the power of music with community service. And this is a DJ, producer, and just an overall lover of music, and happy to be here. So
amazing. So we have an artist in our midst, or all three of you are artists to some extent, of course. A brand and somebody who helped build a disrupting platform in this industry. So perhaps we can unpack that a little bit more. I'm interested to hear from you guys from, let's say, your role within the industry, how you've seen the, let's say, the last 10 years develop, and what are the biggest changes are that have led us to be in this, what's called Generation DIY. Perhaps, Nelke, you can tell us a little bit about how you got started, and what some of the big changes have been, and what decisions you've been making along the way, basically.
Yeah, I think speaking from my perspective, I make music for about 6 years now, and before that, I still am a big consumer of music and a fan, and something which was very obviously immediately was the access which I had to information, not only based off like receiving the music and music artists were releasing, but also finding the means how I could share what I'm creating with the world. So the internet was a very big world, basically, online. But I think in the past couple of years, there were really developments which made it possible for everybody to either share your music with the world or share your videos with the world. Everything started to get a little bit more accessible. So I think the title Gen DIY really makes sense because everything was accessible, all kind of information, how you wanted to record, how you wanted to build a studio, how to edit your videos, etc. So personally, for me, that's a big change, but I was born in between the era of not having internet and having internet, so it's hard for me to say if that's for me, that was one thing that was very obvious if I should speak of a change.
So to summarize, basically, you could state that your generation has more tools, therefore more agency on their own crafts.
Exactly, the accessibility to information, which usually you should have follow some kind of study or anything like that. now all of a sudden isn't necessary anymore. So that's, I think, in my opinion, one of the biggest changes.
Yeah. Jesper, Julio, this phenomenon that Nelge just touched on, with just basically the internet and it being like the most powerful tool that this generation has. How do you guys see that in your respective fields and work? So for you, Jesper, you stated that you helped start the Red Bull Studios here in Amsterdam. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit how that went and how the role of the internet was and all of that.
Well, first of all, to add to Nelge's story, because I'm so old that I come from an era when there was music being made without the help of internet and people reaching out to other people without internet. And but it's not just the internet actually that makes this generation able or makes it possible for this generation to do everything themselves. It's also another technological development. Because I've worked in studios all my life, and if you now see what's there available for people to make music now, they can do everything by themselves, and that's also a big important change in the music industry. That we don't actually need big studios anymore. And it sounds weird from a guy working for one of the biggest studios in Amsterdam, but it's true. People don't really need big studios. They can do everything themselves. All you need is a laptop, basically, or a computer, whatever. And that changed a lot. That changed the quality of the music also. Some for the worse, some for the better. But everyone can be an artist, and that makes it very interesting. And brand-wise, for the brands, I think the most important change for them is where do you find your audience? Where can you reach your audience? And that's shifted to an online community as well, where before that it was advertising, it was maybe brands went into events. But there's a whole online community, an international community now. And if you don't tap into that community as a brand, you're missing out. So that's also a big change, I think.
I see. Claro. And Mr. Julio, thank you for your answer, by the way, Jesper. Very interesting. Same question actually for you, right? So in the setting up of Selection in the years you spend with them, but also in the work you do with room service, how does these phenomenons of the internet and social media and this newfound agency with young people, how does that play a role in your story?
Yeah, totally. Excuse me. I definitely agree with everyone. It's important to, first of all, to like embrace all of the technological advancements and advancements with the internet and different tools that you can use to, to create more work and more magic for yourself. I think it's really important that, what we did with Selection at the beginning was embrace all of the new tools with Instagram and even like, Snapchat and geo tags and that, and, making sure we don't miss Facebook. And, what may not work here in New York works in Paris. What works in Paris may not work in South Africa. What works in South Africa may not work in South Korea. So it's really important to kind of cover all your bases, just so you make sure you're hitting, every single demographic and your entire following. And that's something that's really important. With any up and coming group or even established group, is like keep rolling with the times. Like even with room service, we fully embrace the internet except for maybe TikTok. We're not on that. but I'm not mad at it. You know, it's like, I think it's important. There's so much music discovery, and there's so much, so much value with that as well. But even like, software programs or online tools that help you amplify the work that you're doing on Instagram, or, embracing Twitch and trying live stream. I think it's important to hit all of that. So, I think that really separates a lot of folks from, being closed-minded and just saying, I just want to do this or do it this way. If you're putting out mixes on SoundCloud, why not put mixes out on Mixcloud as well? Why not cover the whole gamut if you're able to do that? And especially if these services are free for the most part. I think everyone made a good point for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. So guys, in that title, Generation Do It Yourself, it almost alludes to that doing it yourself is always better. But I was interested, perhaps we could touch on what some of the challenges are, or perhaps even dangers or pitfalls of doing it yourself. Because there has to be some merit in the old way of doing it, or isn't there? Nelgi, maybe you have some thoughts about that.
I think that there are definitely pitfalls, but
so to complete that, so from the outside in, it looks like you as an independent artist, it's all amazing, right?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, but I'll be very curious to learn what some of the challenges are.
Yeah, I think that like when you're self-taught, there are a lot of obstacles which are all based off life experience. So, for instance, you might come up with an idea of you wanted to realize this concept for a video. But then you all of a sudden have to, of course, you might find the right director and the right producer, and everyone's on board to realize the project. Even if you got the funding already, there's always still a part of having the whole team in sync. So, which is more of this is something you don't really get taught at school or on the internet, but it's something which comes with life experience. And also knowledge of how people work and how to empower everyone in his or her position. These are things which are all based of experience in real life, by diving into the deep and getting into the process, the creative process, and at every point learning again and again that there's always something which you can learn whenever there's a situation. Like, I never like to call problems. I like to call them situations, because it's all a matter of the perspective. But these are all things which happen because of being on this journey and having so many situations that if I would call them all problems, I wouldn't have the optimistic energy and feel that I have to realize these things which are bigger than me. So that is one of the obstacles which I think neither the internet, neither the textbooks teaches us. But this is more of an experience thing with just dealing with humans. That's a very it's a thing which occurs in every process. Funding might look like a hassle when you're talking about an independent journey, but the moment that you're so passionate about that particular thing that you want to realize, money is like maybe the last thing you think of. You just think of finding the right-minded people who are down to join you in realizing this process. But eventually you might find them, but how are you going to make sure that everyone's aligned and you get the job done. So personally, that was for me a very thoughtful thing in this whole journey.
Yeah, you became a project manager as well.
You became a project manager, a psychologist, a therapist. You become everything, like a dad.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a little bit? Because you've mentioned twice about your team and the people you've gathered around you and the team you've built. DIY or Generation DIY, maybe that's me, but it sometimes sounds like this very soloistic thing to do,
I hear you.
Me against the world type of vibe. So but tell me about this team of yours and how it got assembled and what kind of people you have in there and all that stuff.
Yeah, so basically there was this point that in my career where I was thinking of how is it possible that I always manage to realize these projects which have a way bigger production value than people think that they have. They feel like it's 10 times more than what money is actually put into it. So basically I have this vision and I just really want to push the creativity for the individuals to reach their highest potential and to flourish that and share that with the world. And that vision is something which eventually is seen through the work and through the videos and the music which I make. But in that process, there were always people who were willing to join and who were triggered by this vision of mine. And this world we created is called 6-0, and 6-0 means 6 zeros, and 6 zeros is 1,000,000. And my philosophy behind it is that whenever we're talking about something big, whenever I ask you to envision a bottle of water, 1 bottle is possible. Whenever I ask you to envision 10, it's possible. But when I ask people to envision 1,000,000, all of a sudden it's too big for them. But there are people who I found who are able to envision the 1,000,000 bottles, and with those people, that are people whom I can align with and create these projects which feel like we have a production value of 1,000,000. Whilst maybe there isn't even money involved in the whole process, but because everyone wants to flourish in the potential creative potential which they have, we eventually manage to set out these immense projects. Jasper is one of the people as well who when was working at Red Bull saw the vision and fought for us to eventually make my album release effect based off the crazy idea we had together. So that's the core vision of what 6-0 means for me. And then I have like a graphic designer. I have my partner, my right hand, whom I found 6-0 with. And I'm more of the dreamer and the visionary. And the people around me are very well in finding the right means to eventually channel it into tangible things, to manifest it tangibly. So that's the vision. Yeah.
I see. Very insightful to understand how your little cosmos looks like, and how you work with the people around you. It did give me a nice segue to Jasper and the Rebel Studios. So you've actually been named by an artist in this panel as somebody who's helped make him bigger and realize a career. So with you, I would love to touch on, I think Rebel is one of the prime examples of how a brand can, really touch the culture and leverage it, create win-win situations. But for the people at home who don't know, what that setup was with Red Bull Studios, but also what kind of things you guys were able to do for artists like Glenn. Yeah, please take the stage.
Okay, I'll make it short. Well, Red Bull was always known for their sport marketing. They still are, but they have for a long time, I think more than 20 years, have always been involved in music. And that resulted in the yearly Red Bull Music Academy, in which they organized all over the world in a different city each year. And with that academy, they touched down in the city, and they invited talents from all over the world to come there and to experience their academy and to get inspired, but also to create, because they also created studios for the talents to work in. So the talents got inspired by lectures by very famous people. So you have to imagine, they fly you in, you can stay there for 2 weeks. They'll serve you top-notch breakfast. After breakfast, you have a lecture from someone you only know through television. And then there's this next level lunch. And after the lunch, there's another lecture by someone you know. And then in the evening, after a great dinner, you head over to the studio where you work together with all the other talents. And that's where you create. So that's the base. I think that's the base of the Red Bull Music program. And so what they did is because it was like a traveling circus, they left studios everywhere, except in Amsterdam. I think we're the only studio who wasn't related to the academy. We just built it. But then we had a studio, and then there's the question, what are you going to do with it? And then our idea was, with the studio and with our music program, is that we'll use it for multiple things. First is we'll use it as a place where we create content, music-related content, but we also use it as a way to get in touch with the music industry itself, and to build relationships. Because very early on, we realized that if you want to work with artists as a brand, you want to be their partner instead of being their sponsor. And that's, I think, is a very important lesson for all other brands. If you want to get involved with the music industry, you make sure you bring something of value to the table, and just bringing money, a bag of money, and to say, hey, please affiliate with us, show us your brand on your social media, it's not enough, because it's not sincere. So what we try to do, and I think our project with Young Nelg is a very good example of something that's more like a partnership than it was like a sponsorship. We knew Nelg from the studio. He came over to the studio to work there. People were allowed to work in the studio for free. And then we built a relationship with the artists we think have certain potential, are interested, have a story to tell. And then when we build that relationship, we'll ask them, okay, so is there something, a project we can come up with that will benefit you as an artist? And in that way, it will benefit the brand as well. And that's what we did with Young Nelg, where he recorded his album in our studio with our engineers. And we organized the release as a special event. Yeah, and I think that's a good example of how it could be done by brands. It also depends on the resources, of course. I mean, let's be honest. Red Bull has a lot of resources to come up with that kind of projects. But I still think that I see more brands working that way, like Puma, for example. Puma, the clothing brand. They have a Puma Academy as well, in which they gather talent around them and they teach them something. They give value to them. And it's on a whole different scale than Red Bull did, but it works. So I think it's a good example of how a brand can put value into the music industry and the careers of young talents.
Yeah, clear, man. And double checking with Glenn. Is that the
long story?
Sorry.
I think it was definitely what I was looking for was a partnership instead of just working together with a brand and just getting the money and whatever. It was the resources went further, in my opinion, than just financial resources, but also what kind of ideas can people bring to the table to realize the best of this collaboration. And I think that also the vision and the values should match before we jump into such a trajectory. And I think it matched. Like Red Bull wanted to give artists wings. I wanted to push the creative potential of individuals and eventually inspire more people to do the same. And I think that there's a match in those visions. And then when you have great people like Jasper, then everything just falls in line.
Thanks, man.
Julio, I had a question for you related to this one, right? So is it safe to say that your work was mainly artist development, right? When you started out with Selection, and I'm curious to hear how those dynamics were between Selection, the artist, and perhaps some of the brands. Keen to learn, who was the DIY person, who was facilitating, who was helping.
Yeah, I mean, again, everyone made such brilliant points. It's everyone sort of had that DIY mentality. I think that's the reason as to why everyone sort of meshed together and worked so well together. Is the collective mind state is important, but also the collective is only as strong as each individual that brings something to the table, right? So it sort of forms like Voltron. And that's the case really with any organization or group that you join. And it's really important to bring something very unique to the table. So with that being said, you have to really sharpen your knives, and you have to really learn what it is that you want to bring to the table, and you have to learn what it is that you really want to excel in, like, for example, with room service, when we went from doing shows all over the world, and, I've gone from doing sellout tours and shows and, traveling, 90% plus out of the year. And you go from that lifestyle and that sort of your career and your work to that abruptly ending in the pandemic. And now we have to sort of recalibrate and, play these DJ sets or work on these sets and this music via Twitch or the internet. And so with that being said, you have to rearrange your studio. You have to do more audio check. There's more tech checks. There's video that you have to sync up. And so, during the pandemic, I became a director, a producer, a lighting director, a writer, project manager. You sort of like, you sort of delve into all of it. And because it's fresh, you're most likely 100% going to fall into some problems and complications. But I agree what you were saying is basically like, I don't really look at it as problems either, though. It's I always tell myself it's never about not having problems, but always having solutions, and having solutions to what you're working on, and having that positive mind state of like, all right, this is fresh, this is new to me, I understand that, but how do I overcome that? What do I learn? What do I have to do with the tools that I have to overcome these things? And that's really the entire game, really. With room service as well, we for us, it's really important to create those partnerships as well. And it's really important for us to develop long-term relationships, because one of the most important things about not only philanthropy and humanitarianism and giving back, but really with everything that we do, but it's the consistency, right? It's the consistency. So, and really following through and revisiting the places that we've traveled to, staying in touch with people that we've given back to, and checking up on them and seeing what's good and checking the pulse. And so, those partnerships, apart from the resources, they really help create that long-term relationship. And that in itself, with the DIY culture of trying to establish relationships and partnerships, is very difficult, is super difficult. You more times than not, you have to know somebody, or you get lucky on reaching something out. So applying yourself is really important. And that's, obviously not something that we're able to do with the pandemic right now, is really go out there and apply yourself and, support different events and check out different parties and shows and events and talk to people. So, it's a lot of research that you got to dig into in terms of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So how do you think that industry will look like after this pandemic? Because as you stated before last year, you're traveling 90% of your time. I believe with room service, you guys even pinpoint or focus on these underserved regions. So I believe already places that people don't reach easily. So all of that seems like your challenge is just becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. So as this pandemic influencing room service and then the industry at large?
Yeah, I mean, what's really special about room service and the sort of core, one of the cores of what we do is we establish these networks with people all over the world. So, I'm really grateful for my travels and the work that I did with Selection. And the amount of traveling that I was able to do and had to do for the work and for building what we built. But for me, there was always something bigger. And what that was being able to support people and really travel to where they live and experience what they eat and, what they do on a day-to-day. And so, I really got to meet a lot of incredible, beautiful people in my travels and really, honestly, anywhere I go now, it's like home to me. So what I'm trying to do with these relationships and these people is empower them to sort of create these type of events or, projects that they can do in their hometowns with the sort of room service template. And so I want to be able to sort of expand what we're doing here in New York and use what we've done already in Southeast Asia and Brazil, and what we were going to work on through Africa at the beginning of last year, and sort of create this sort of template that folks can feel empowered and inspired to do some of that work in their own cities until the pandemic lifts. But, even when the vaccine hits, and it's obviously the vaccine is starting to roll out, but even as that continues to roll out, as a DJ that spends a lot of time I don't even think I'm going to be full blown into wanting to go into the clubs. And, it's like, so it's kind of tricky, but luckily what we do at room service is out in the open, whether we're beautifying a building or planting a garden or, doing food programs, and building infrastructure. I'm grateful that happens, a lot of it outdoors. And so we can get some of that fresh air going on and be outdoors and be safe. But it's definitely a challenge, and we gotta work on it every day. It's not something that there's a clear-cut answer to. But it's definitely given us a lot of perspective in how we move about with the pandemic.
I see. And Nel, you as artist, how is this pandemic influencing you and your work? And it could be positive, could be negative.
Yeah. Of course, the negative is very obvious. So like you can't perform, you can do like my shows used to be very intense shows where people would have mosh pits and all those kind of stuff, and now that's something which isn't possible anymore. But we're trying to be as fluid as possible. So we did a small tour where we could perform for like 30 people seated. And before this pandemic, I never really thought about performing with a band because I didn't felt like my music would allow it. But now, because the urge was so intense that we wanted to share some positivity with the fans, we just try to make it work, and it really pushed us into an uncomfortable situation, which eventually led into us creating this very new experience and dimension. So therefore I was very grateful, and I think that when the reason why you do what you do is clear, even during a global pandemic, you still manage to receive the right options and see the right options for you to eventually do what you have to do what you feel like you have to do. So it gave me obviously time to think, to create music as well, because you have all the time now to be in the studio. You don't have to perform. And I'm in the studio as we speak. But it really, for me personally, was a very positive experience. As in, of course, I understand, like, with all due respect to the people who are sick or have lost family members or friends, that's something which we can deny and can neglect. Personally, I just have a different perspective, but that's all based because why I feel like I'm here for. So it was pretty positive, but that's just the perspective which I feel.
Actually, now that I hear you say it like that, it does make some sense that, these pandemic times, are a little bit more favorable to the ones that are already used to struggling or not having alternatives or having to do it yourself, basically. So I actually like that approach that it's not all negative, right? So
when you're doing yourself financially, you're already like living pandemic proof. It's like when you're independent, you just manage to watch every penny that goes out, and so when all those stuff hit, I was already prepared mentally, like, okay, cool.
Taking that broader, Jasper, you said that the studios has been now closed since a couple of days, but in the years that you were working at the studio, you obviously met a whole lot of these DIY new generation type of artists, worked together with them. Basically the same question for Nelfi, but a little bit more broader. How do you think this, the reality that we're living in at the moment is going to influence this generation, or it is influencing this generation? Do you think it's all negative, positive, or as we stated, these challenges might be a little bit less harsh for this new generation? What are your thoughts?
Ooh, that's so hard to say. I think that for some people it will be positive, and for some people it will be negative. If you're used to doing things yourself, and if you have the means to do it, then you can make the best out of it. But if your career is based around live performances, then it's going to be very hard, because no one knows when it's going to be possible again. But the thing is, I think either way, we have to start looking at making music as an art form again, instead of a commercial means. Because you can always make, if you're an artist, you can always make art. Even if you only have an iPhone, even if you only have a one guitar, you know, just make art, develop yourself as an artist, make sure you write the most beautiful songs, and then when the world opens up again, you can present your products or your art. So it's hard to say if it's gonna be different. I'm sure it's gonna be different. If it's gonna be better, depends on who you are. For some people, it will. And I think, sorry to add something to that, I think it's going to be better, especially for the younger generation, because they're more flexible. They're more used to create something out of nothing. If you're an established artist, then you might also survive, because hopefully you have enough money on the bank. If you're a starting talent and you don't have anything, then you don't have anything now. Well, you don't have anything, you didn't have anything before, so nothing's going to change. But yes, it's the middle section that I'm really curious about. Who's going to survive? Who's going to start again? Who's going to stop making music? Which I would never recommend. Man, just get a day job and then make music in the evening, because music is, if you're an artist, then music is your passion, then it's your art form. Then you should always make music, even if it's just for your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whoever. Don't ever stop making it.
Yeah. So basically, you know, don't work for the music, but make the music work for you. Something in that regard. Hey guys, we have just a little bit over 10 minutes left in this beautiful hour. And normally we do questions from the viewers at home. But I thought maybe it's nice this time for us to ask each other questions. So Nelgi, I would love for you to just come up with 2 short questions. One you would love to ask Jasper and Julio. Jasper, the same for Nelgi. Jasper, Julio, you the same for Nelgi and Jasper.
Yeah,
I messed up one of those, but y'all know what I mean. Who wants to start?
Yeah, I'll set it off. Jasper, I think that was really, really dope what you said.
Thanks.
I think, if you're a writer and you're writing books, like continue to write and write books. I think really, really keeping your brain activated. And that's really like our only solitude, right? That's like our solace, I should say, our peace is like, I'm 20 years in my career now. And, it's part of me is like, if I want to, make this mixtape or work on this thing, like, who knows if anyone's going to hear it? Who knows, like, how many people hear it? Who knows what the vibe is? But, you make it for yourself and you really feel your value and how much you appreciate life and how beautiful life is and what you're working on. And on top of that, like, you really never know who's listening. You really never know who's watching, because, even be invited to this panel, like, such a blessing to like just be like tapped in by people, especially in the Netherlands, which I'm very fond of and I love. I'm starting a radio show tomorrow with the station in Paris. And they love my mixes. They love what I'm, so it's like, you never really know who's paying attention. So it's always important to continue to do what you do for yourself and for the world, because there are people out there that really that really hold it dear and really appreciate what you're doing, you know? So I think that was a really important point that you made.
Thanks.
But Jasper, I guess I have a question for you. Like, now that the studio is closed, are you working more kind of on an independent basis with helping artists, and kind of because you have such a very management minded, you know, brain as well, and you're very keen on the business. I could tell, like, you're super smart about the industry and business. So apart from the studio stuff, do you find that you're helping artists on your own time just to give back and like help them with their careers and stuff?
Yeah, I do actually. So I still have a lot of conversations with all kinds of artists about these things. I have this theory I use a lot, which is more like a holistic theory about making music, which I talk a lot about with artists. And I manage Naomi Sharon, and she's a singer from Rotterdam. And so I wanted to manage one artist and do different things in my spare time. But still, I'm always talking with artists, also industry, just as a freelancer, just advising people. This is what I like to do. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's dope. Yeah.
And you had a question for young Nelgi?
Yes. So how do you, with the team, and this is something that I always think about myself too with my team, and I know how important your team is with you or for you. How do you, so it's really inspiring to hear how you generate your own inspiration and motivation, but you know, you talked about being in sync with your team and stuff, and I think that's also really, really difficult and important at the same time. How do you inspire your team, or how do you, you know, stay consistent with, you know, communication and you know, making sure people are on top of their work and stuff? And what's maybe a strategy that you can suggest with keeping folks on their toes on your team?
Yeah, I think personally, I'm pretty honest in. Sometimes I don't even know the answers myself, so I try to create this area of trust wherein people get the confidence of me believing in their choices whenever it's so whenever I might have created something which I feel that we should share with, I don't know, like kids from a high school in my old neighborhood. I might not know exactly how we should do it, and therefore put the people whom I feel that might have the answers, I put them into the position of making the decision, which personally I think creates this mutual respect, but also this feeling of trust. And the moment that there is trust amongst a team like that, I think that then things really start flowing. And I'm not trying to be this paranoia checking everyone if you're doing what you're doing. If you notice you're not doing what you're doing, then I think that you might feel guilty, because I'm just trying to be honest and transparent to everyone. But I noticed that transparency and honesty and trust, that those are very important things. People who believe in your vision as well want to experience. Yeah. How do you actually experience it, since you're also having a team and working and building for the community? How is that? That's my question back.
No. I mean, same, honestly, bro. Like, I think it's like, I don't like, I'm not like a micromanager either, you know? So like, I don't I don't constantly hit my team like, hey, is it done? Is it done? Is it done? Like, you know, we set a deadline and let people work as they work and give people the freedom to create and work as they work. And when it's done, it's done. And, you know, room service is my baby, right? Like I created it. It's mine. I'm forever for the rest of my life going to work harder on room service than anybody on the planet.
Fact.
You know, and that's just how it is, right? Like something that you create that's yours, like no one will ever be able to sort of, you know, outwork you, you know, but I don't expect that for the rest of my team. You know, I understand that they have 9-to-5 jobs as well. And I'm honored and I'm blessed that they give me their time and energy and passion into helping, you know, my vision succeed. But at the same time, it's like, even when deadlines are missed, I'm like, all right, like, what can I do? Like, what can I do to help you? You know, like, what can I do to like, you know, to do this or you know, or suggest this, or, okay, what works realistically? I'm super open with my team, and I try to just be as like chill as possible because, you know, what we're doing at room service is beautiful. It's special. It's giving back. It's creating new projects. It's not like we're creating the vaccine for a pandemic, you know, and there's urgency and there's like, you know, and it's like, it's not, there's so much other, for me, there's like so much other bigger things in life, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, you know, this should be fun. This should just be like open and comfortable for people to work and enjoy themselves and really feel good about giving back and not have it feel like work, you know? So that's sort of like the environment that I try to create with my team, and it's been really successful. There's, you know, we just threw a festival in New York, actually, December 12th. It was an online festival, and we had a health and wellness professionals, fitness, mental health instructor. Worked with 3 different restaurants, a mixologist, and we had 6 hours of DJing. So 6 hours of DJs. And there was one live stream. It was 10 hours the whole day on Saturday, December 12th. And so I hired a production team. Like, you know, we had raffles, sponsors, and it was like a huge thing, you know? And like, we missed deadlines a lot, you know? But even still, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, it's cool. Like, we're doing something really dope here and really special and unique. Like, it's going to get done. And you just got to have that confidence and that positivity to know, like, you know, and at the end of the day, you know, we had a couple complications and growing pains, but it was successful. It was dope, you know, and like people loved it.
The man behind room service is happy. So yeah, everybody else.
Yeah. And that's
our hour is almost done. Sorry to interrupt you. And Jasper, I know you're still sitting on some questions, but
no.
Perhaps we'll give those.
Goonie.
Oh no, okay.
20 seconds, because I'm not going to ask any question. I'm going to give a small shout out to GoToHEC for asking these 2 guests to join this conversation, because if there are really good examples of people of the DIY generation that really are successful, its selection is, Julio, what you did with selection has always been an example for us for building an international community. Yourself, do it through the powers of the internet. And Nelgi, it's the same for you, man.
Thank you.
Not looking for majors to support you, but to support yourself, create a team to support you. And well, nothing but respect for you guys. So that's it. Sorry, that's no question.
I can't wait till this ends. So once this ends and I go to Amsterdam, we're gonna hang out.
Yo, Julio, let's kick it, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll touch you guys after the panel too. So
yeah,
really dope.
I'll give the people at home the main takeaways, and then we'll call it a day. I've been making some notes during the panel. Some of the stuff you guys said that I loved, right? So just for the people at home, why this panel was relevant, as Jasper highlighted, we have beautiful, actually exemplary examples here of true DIYers, whether it be Jasper, whether it be Julio, or young Nel. Especially in the last world, the world has undergone so many changes with the pandemic, with social media and the internet taking over a little bit more. In this panel, we sort of came to a conclusion that these challenges might not be too bad for the DIY generation. They're used to challenges. They're used to adapting to unforeseen circumstances. So if you're a DIYer at home, man, it's positive, and there's enough hope. See it as your environment actually now catching up to you. Some of the other takeaways were that you guys advised that people at home should embrace new mediums and outlets. Not seeing problems as solutions. I love that one, Nelfi. Building a team that can make magic with low means, essential if you want to DIY. Some strong advice for brands and labels, and maybe like the old guard, saying that if you want to get involved with this DIY generation, better bring value to the table. We want partnerships, not sponsorships. If you do partner up, make sure you guys have the same values, or at least some shared values. Because it's DIY, it's never just doing one thing. You need to prepare yourself of being, a person that can do all, that has to do all. And lastly, I think we concluded that the pandemic has sped up this transition to DIY. So for the people that started on this wave before last year, we advise them, continue to do you. There are eyes, you will be seen. Just continue to hustle. And for the people that weren't up to speed yet, better get up to speed, because as we said, this transition is going faster and faster. And I hope that I covered your main points, my guys. This was my pleasure, and I also want to thank the beautiful people of GoTo and Eurosonic Noorderslag. I hope we can do this one again, maybe in a year, and see where there are expectations and hypotheses and analyses came out, and how the new reality will look like. But thank you, gentlemen, and
yes, sir.
I think this was the panel.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Good job. Much love.